Sometimes it's good to not have the usual. Simply present. Simple presence. Relax your eyes entirely. All the tiny, small muscles in the eyes relax. And then simple trick, a simple tip that we used on 2 previous mornings. Get some kind of a sense of all your cells, or somehow like a minute particles of the body, tiny ones. And then letting those cells, tiny particles, letting them relax and open. Letting the body take few deep breaths if it wants to do that. knowing ourselves as Buddhas. Recognizing our own existential foundation, if you like. That is the foundation of all sentient beings. And it is not really, knowing of something, knowing of or cognizing this or that. It's knowing itself. Because all beings have Buddha nature. You could say that all beings are knowingness. Knowing itself. There is no duality in there, not even oneness in a superficial sense. Because this unity is selfless. This foundation is selfless, empty of self. Make sure that your spine is straight so that your shoulders are not hunched. Straighten your spine, the chest open a little bit. So that you feel fresh. If we think of all sentient beings from the point of view of, from the perspective of external, internal, and secret, externally, we are, as we can see each other, we are separate entities, separate beings. Internally, we all have energy bodies, minds, that are three-dimensionally bigger than our physical bodies. From the point of view of natural state or the secret perspective, no separation. No me, no you, not even us. Just non-conceptual, clear being. Profound happiness. that moves and lives in our bodies, in our personalities, in our thoughts, in our ideas, in our creativity. So when we recognize, like now, ourselves as wakefulness, our selfing disappears. No self, without a self, absence of me-ness in whatever form. Also distance disappears because there is no self. When there is a me, entityness, it is located in time and space. But when that entityness is gone, there is no location. We are not located in space, and therefore there is no distance. The sense of distance is gone. Same thing when me-ness, the sense of small me is gone, no sense of passing of time either. So the whole three-dimensional paradigm is deconstructed, is shattered. No me, no self, therefore also no you, no sense of distance between us, and no sense of time. It all comes by seeing that we are entirely selfless. It comes by recognizing this foundational state of a complete zero. Not charged with plus, not charged with minus, but zero. Plus minus zero. A zero that is shared by all beings. And it's such a relief, isn't it? Because all of our fears and anxieties, worries and doubts come to a stop, cease to be, because the self ceases to be. Also hopes desires, likes, preferences, stop. Because selfing for a momentarily is stopped. Something that is really, really important is that this zero-ness is not nothingness. It is not meaningless. So we have to be careful that when we easily are fooled by ideas and concepts. In a sense, I have pointed out this nature of mind to you in one sense, in a kind of peaceful, calm way. And if we get stuck on that kind of a passive view, that's half of what this natural state and our life is. We are in a passive state. And if we start thinking that, things in our life, relationships, people, smells, tastes, feelings, that this wouldn't matter, then we are in big trouble. So, your heart is pulsing, pumping blood in your system. So are the hearts of all other beings. Even the trees, grass, water in seas and lakes, wind, it is all in dynamic. It's all dynamic. There is dynamicity in it. There is dynamicity in all life, in all forms. So when Heart Sutra famously says form is emptiness, emptiness is form, we can say that all these forms in our mind, thoughts, emotions, objects in our mind, that when we have insight, we can see that they are empty of self. There is no solid entity in any of these objects that come and go in our mind. That they are just a play of energy. That's what the mind is supposed to do. That's what our psyche, our life energy is supposed to do. So the point is that with form is emptiness, emptiness is form. It simply states how the reality is. But it doesn't say anything about, it kind of leaves it at that. It doesn't say anything how this form expresses itself or how life should be. It only states what is the reality of our condition based on Mahayana Buddhist doctrine. So we can do anything with this form, these forms. It doesn't say live a life of a recluse. It doesn't say don't drink coffee, don't drink beer. It doesn't say don't sing, don't dance. It doesn't say abstain from sex. It doesn't say don't own anything. All these, what I just said, all these things, they are forms. And we also have to see that all these things that life can give us and offer us, we can see them as bonuses, as gifts. But from one point of view, we don't have to abstain from anything. We simply need to see what is the reality. If we have let's say a nice car, BMW, for example, a white one, somebody who is invested in self might think of that white BMW more than it actually is. Just like our self is constructed, it's just a bundle of things constructed, squeezed together. In the same way, white BMW is white steel, rubber, more steel, plastic, and leather, and glass. I would like to have a white BMW because it's a beautiful car. But as such, it's just a thing. And it's exactly like that with everything else. We can also enjoy the touch of our companion, kiss of our companion, intimate time with our companion. But also in samsaric mind, making love, having sex, it becomes something else what it realistically is, because there is self invested in it. It kind of gets twisted. In direct experience, it's a much more fuller and complete experience. Just a simple touch with a hand, touching your partner. Life certainly feels more fuller, more intimate because there's no distance. When we recognize and live from the selfless state, from our true nature, true being. In one sense, because of this, like great poets or spiritual masters who've been poets, they say things like everything is in the heart, or the whole universe lives in me. In a sense, that's a poetical description, but that is actually the case. Our life is the life of all sentient beings. And the life of the whole universe is our life. Through our foundation, Buddha nature, we are interconnected. Connection in connection with everything. And because we have Buddha nature, because we have this wakefulness, we always remained interconnected with everything and will always remain interconnected. This is what Bodhisattva means. So when we take a vow, I vow to liberate all sentient beings, it is not something you keep, like you swear to, well, from one point of view, you swear to be committed in that sense. But that vow is actually a statement of reality, how it is. And, you know, it's a state of reality that we do not have to vow when we reach a certain point. That's how reality is, because we are all interconnected. There's no jumping out or getting away of that interconnectedness. There is getting away from the wheel of samsara, but not from interconnectedness. Even Mahasiddhas, Padmasambhava, he left his physical form over 1,000 years ago, and he's still at it. He's not in samsara, but he's with us because we are interconnected through karma. Connected through karma. So how we are actually connected? I was mentioning external, internal, and secret perspectives. So from the secret perspective, all beings have Buddha nature. From the internal perspective, from the point of view of energetics, like we have discussed extensively, we have energy bodies. Tens of thousands, if not maybe a couple of 100,000 nadis. In my experience, these nadis, they extend beyond the aura. They are not only inside the aura, but they go beyond the edge of the aura. Maybe a few 100,000, let's say 250,000 nadis. 250,000 telephone lines. That's shitloads of telephone lines. Many, many connections. And in my experience, and you can also validate this yourself through your own practice, these nadis, where they go to, are beings who we are karmically connected with. And one single nadi can connect with, it connects with way more than one being or entity. There can be many, many hundreds, if not thousands, in a single nadi connected. So what I'm saying is that what I'm talking about is this interconnectedness through the internal energy body. So we are literally connected with many, many, many numerous beings, whether physical or non-physical. For example, there is a line between myself and each one of you. Those of you who know each other, there's also lines between you. But then each one of us, myself and yourself, we also have connections with many other people. And those people have connections with many other people. And so it goes on and on and on. That's how we are connected. Can you see that? Can you perceive that? Despite of the karmic connections we have, fortunately, each of us as individuals can realize full enlightenment, full and perfect enlightenment. First, second, and third stage of Buddhahood. Those karmic connections won't hinder us from realizing it. Fortunately, if we have karmic connections to Dharma and good lineages, good teachers, and we make effort because we suffer, then we can tap that full potential. Which is just what we are doing right now, right here. As you know, samsara means, I used the word when I talked about the constructed self. Our me-ness is just a bundle of different kinds of impressions and opinions. Squeezed into a ball. And the more we believe our thoughts, beliefs, and opinions, the tighter the ball gets. So the first Bodhisattva vow, as rendered in our Pemako teachings, I vow to liberate all sentient beings. I vow to end all self-based confusion. I vow to exercise the Dharma that frees. I vow to attain the great perfection. In a sense, each one of these vows says exactly the same thing. I vow to liberate all sentient beings is the same as I vow to attain the great perfection. It simply means that I vow to see through my own delusion. I vow to look and see through my self-centered condition. I vow it. We might have other vows and have made other promises in life, but from the spiritual or existential point of view, this vow becomes the priority of Mahayana Buddhist practitioners. Reaching just personal, individual liberation is not a priority. We are doing this for all sentient beings. Because we know that we are interconnected. And that simple statement that can become a vow, that can become a lifeline, or like a direction. That is the opposite what samsaric mind does, isn't it? Not only about me, I, but everyone together. So I, as an individual, as a person, I take a vow to attain Buddhahood, to attain full and complete enlightenment, also known as great perfection, to help all sentient beings who are trapped in samsara. I take that as my responsibility, not a responsibility in a superficial way, because like I said, that's the reality of our confusion. We are already connected. We just make a vow to do it. And the result, outcome of that is Buddhahood. Knowing, realizing who we truly are. Let's continue in a resting position. Lie down for 15-20 minutes. Yeah.
It's funny there, you know, when you were leading that, you know, my mind's like it's kind of grabbing out what I have to do. You know, I'm going to do this on Saturday, and then, but it was coming back in. It was, you know, it was coming back in, and it wasn't as attaching quite as much, you know. It wasn't grabbing quite as much, you know, and I was kind of more in a place where I knew that was going on, kind of, but it wasn't as, you know, you know, I wasn't really, you know, I wasn't following the story as much. I wasn't getting dragged around as much, you know. Yeah.
Yep. And that was kind of the session that we did. Luke isn't here.
When you were talking about the line between people, you mean a line connecting?
Yes.
Yeah. Rather than.
So what I was saying about well, first of all, I wanted to share a perfect analogy of what I just described. Like we all have seen in forest, there are sometimes these huge spider webs you can see, you know? Have you seen one of those big ones? So, you know, if you think of a same kind of spider web, but just that it has 100,000 of those threads, many more than in those spider webs you see in a forest. And then if you think that, like I was describing yesterday about the karmic layer of each nadi, that the karmas are stored on the outer layers of the nadi. So then when you think of a spider web, and imagine that those thin lines there's some dirt on them, or some, you know, chaotic colors like I described yesterday. But that's your spider web. But then you can imagine that, let's say I'm at my home in my living room. So this room is maybe, I don't know, 20 square meters, something like this. So imagine a spider web like that in a space like your room where you are now. And then imagine that there is your spider web, and then there's another one, some other person's spider web that is a little bit, what do you call this? Like a
intersection.
Interpenetration. Yeah. Is interpenetration, does that work?
Yeah.
So it is in the same space, but it overlaps a little bit. Then there's a third one in another angle, and a fourth one, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, the whole space filled with different people's spider webs. And all of them have chaotic colors, right? But then yourself being a practitioner, you start cleaning yours. And there are the interlacing, interpenetrating webs. So there is some effect constantly when you clear yours. Finally, you keep clearing, and your whole web becomes clear like it naturally would be. Imagine the effect of that on the other webs. That's a really good analogy, I think. Really good description. And what I also wanted to add that what I'm talking about with this, that you can actually experience what I was saying. I'm talking from my own experience because I have seen how it is. I can perceive how it is. And like we discussed, was it yesterday or the day before that, you know, as you progress along the path, you start to perceive things that you didn't perceive before. So that's how it should be, you know. Maybe some of you perceive it already, what I described in that session.
Yeah, Kim, I had a kind of a question and a sort of a comment on what you've just said, and kind of related to an experience I just had. And I was kind of meditating, and I could feel my connection with other people in my life, and you know, that sense of connectedness with others, and I could feel that, yeah, some of my relationships were sort of, you know, there was, you know, karmic dirt. They weren't pure relationships. You know, I could feel that sort of sense of that there was work to be done, you know, to clear that up. And then I got the sense of, well, the sense of self. Who is it that owns all this karmic stuff? Because there is no self anyway, you know. And then I realized, well, actually, the sense of self is actually, that is the karmic impurities. And when those karmic impurities are cleared out, the sense of self goes away with it. So there's nothing that really owns this karmic stuff. Ultimately, the karmic stuff owns itself.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you say, like in doing that work on myself, it is also kind of healing other people too at the same time, because you know, I just got the sense of this karma that I sort of carry. It's a shared karma with other people as well. It's not just mine as such. You know, it's like it's just this overall karma that just exists basically, and I can, when my stuff is pure, the sense of self will be gone, but also I don't know, I just got this feel, you know, sense that it's just very much connected with other beings as well. It's hard to, it's quite tricky to describe, you know, and put into words, but there was a less of a sense of owning it and just more of a sense of, it's just karma, it's just stuff. I don't really own this stuff, even though I do. On one sense, I do own it, but in another sense, there's no owner of this stuff, really, in reality. It's just stuff that needs to be cleared out, and awareness, this universal awareness, is just doing that work, and I'm a part of that, but yeah. I probably get confused. Yeah. Confuse everybody, but yeah, that's.
I think the beauty of the yogic path from the beginning is that, you know, the teacher according to the doctrine, or teachers according to the doctrine, they present a hypothesis. And the beauty of yogic path is that, you know, you learn some practices and exercises that you can use to start seeing and realizing it yourself. You know, just I'm talking about the difference between belief-based religions and practice-based philosophies or religions.
Yeah, it's not just theory.
Is this a time for questions, Kim?
Yes.
I was interested in what you had to say about passivity within experience, and I definitely sort of recognize what you were saying about within meditation, experiencing stillness is a passive, seems to be like a passive experience. And a lot of, like, certainly within monastic Buddhism, there's an emphasis on renunciation and an emphasis on withdrawing from life, I suppose, in a way, and abstinence. And it does seem quite a passive path in many ways. And I do feel that within myself, I do sort of tend towards passivity, probably through that influence. I was wondering what you know, how you'd say, how you bring in like the more active element into your life.
I'm glad you didn't ask me to expand on that passiveness, because that would be the rant of a century. So how to become more passive? No, more active. Sorry. You know, all those things that, you know, I lived like a monk for a while. I lived in a monastery where we did monastic things, the things that monastics do. I was never ordained, but it was my dream for many years that I would become a monk. And I think that many of us early on our paths, we have that desire to become monks. And you know, so I lived the life of a monastic for a short while. I have many friends who have been monks or nuns for a number of years, but then they disrobed. And I also have friends who have stayed monastics for decades. I think it's just a matter of preference, really. How do you want to practice? But I think it's good to remember that, you know, we are allowed to change our mind. We are allowed to reevaluate our decisions and make new decisions. So at some point of our path, one kind of, you know, we choose to practice in a certain way and do things and live in a certain way. And that can serve us greatly. But then further down the line, we might feel and see things differently because we are a different person. If we practice, we change as a person, and our take on things changes. And that's how it should be. So I think that I've discussed this with a few of my friends who have been monastics and who disrobed, that this is exactly what happened to them, that living in a monastery, doing a retreat after the other, just that living that lifestyle wasn't the best fit anymore for them. So they disrobed. And I was just talking about this with some friend of mine just a few days ago. In the monastery where I trained in Japan, there was this monk, a man, who was a Zen monk for 15 years. 15 years. That's a pretty long haul, isn't it, in a monastery? If I think 15 years back, I was 26 years old then. So that's a long stretch from 26 to 41. But then I can't speak for him, but I think that it happened to him that, he felt that he had taken Bodhisattva vow. That's a really strong element in Zen Buddhism, Bodhisattva vows. That's where I took the 4 vows of a Bodhisattva that we also have in Pemako, and changed my life forever. But so I can't really speak for him, but I think what happened to him was that he also felt that, okay, I've been doing this for 15 years. He had literally done like in Sogenji, in the monastery, like half of each month is spent in retreat. 2 or 2.5 weeks each month. So like he had spent 7.5 years in retreat, in strict retreat for that period. And I guess he felt that, okay, I've done this enough. I've sat enough to try my wings in the world a little bit again. Because, I guess, like we all, we have hard time in the world, and we are confused, and we don't have a way to go. So, we take some time to do some monastic training or residential training that will also take place in Pemako in near future when we have our own residential training center. But, I guess he felt that I've been doing this for 15 years. Now I want to see what I can do elsewhere than in this monastery. And he took and went to Mother Teresa's hospital for poor people in India, in Calcutta. And that's the hospital. I don't know if it's still there, but what I was told was that that's the hospital where the most poor people, like homeless people and really poor people come. So they literally might have their arm rotten, covered in maggots, like this. The worst hospital you can find on earth, let's put it that way. And he said that he was there as a volunteer, and he said that he could cope with it, he could manage it, but he couldn't have managed it if he hadn't spent 15 years in a monastery. If he hadn't done all that training and all that, hadn't had all those kenshos he had, bhumi openings, realizations, shifts. So that's his story of becoming less involved in the world to becoming more involved in the world. I don't know, James. I guess I don't have any better answer to you. But maybe I could quote what Babaji told me years ago, that he told me, gave me this incredible diamond as a gift. And it goes, be yourself, find your own way. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. That's not so easy to do. Be yourself. And then find your own way. Not somebody else's way. Not copying what somebody else is doing. But finding those things in our life that are for us to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got a fairly clear idea what that is for me. You know, about it. You know, there's always an element of questioning that goes on. You know, self-questioning.
But you should have named your gallery according to what I suggested to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You know what I want to do in my life? What I've been dreaming about for years.
Have a center.
Huh?
Have a center.
So I want to have our own residential center where somewhere in natural surroundings that is easy to come for people for retreats and easy to go and easy to stay. Maybe in northern Spain, maybe somewhere else in Europe, but nevertheless in a natural surrounding that is beautiful, like a mountainous or hilly area, maybe a lake, next to a lake or a sea, big pines, big trees. So have a residential center there, constant ongoing retreats, constant training, but also having like a fireplace in the yard, you know, having a chat in the evenings. What do you call that? Roasting marshmallows? Do you say roasting? Grilling? Yeah.
Toasting.
Toasting. Yeah.
Toasting.
Yeah. Training together all day, all night, toasting marshmallows, looking at the stars, feeling the wind, not doing so much internet. I've done it for years and I have never really liked it. Maybe have a dog and a donkey in the center. Just drink good tea, good coffee.
Yeah, sounds good.
Enjoy sunlight. Unfortunately, it looks like it's pretty near. Shouldn't be that far away in time anymore.
Feels like we're in a prison now, Shawshank Redemption or something, some sort of sharing fantasies about, you know, real life when we escape.
Luke, you have to dig a hole behind the Anka on the wall.
Sorry?
Like in the movie, you have to make a hole behind the Anka on your wall.
You mean
Oh,
some?
Maybe I mistake. Was it that movie or something else?
Which movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
get out.
Was there a hole on the wall and they escaped?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll dig my way out.
Yeah, and then remember the next bit. He has to crawl through 500 meters of shit.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's the training.
That's normal retreat. Yeah.
So, a few words about the refuge after lunch break. So those of you who are taking refuge, have your altar ready, Guru Rinpoche's picture, flowers if you have, an incense if you have, candle is also all right. Liz was asking me about using a candle. Sure, go ahead. Then you need a plate or a small bowl that should be clean and nice, and then scissors to cut your own hair a little bit. So yeah, I guess that's it for now. So we will be chanting during the ceremony. We will be first chanting the relative refuge for a while, and then we chant the Bodhisattva vows, and then we continue with all those other basic prayers one by one. So that's how it will be conducted. Yeah, I guess it's better that I give you more specific instructions when we begin after lunch. So let's continue in 1 hour. Oh, Liz, go ahead.
Do you need to be able to see our altars?
No, I don't need to see. Yeah.
That's fine. I just would need to fix it. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's continue in 1 hour. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.